Hello, welcome to another chapter of my real versus virtual little series. Today we're going to look at data, the same laps which we looked at a couple of weeks ago in the Formula Renault at Watkins Glen. So the upper trace up here is turn one, we go through the S's, and turn five, without using the inner loop chicane. And on the top we have speed, lateral G's, steering trace, brake pedal position, and throttle. Anybody that has ever worked with me on data is familiar to the way I arrange things, always on top, what the results are as opposed to what we do, brake, steer, gas, and with that we can tell the story. Now the obvious thing as I zoom in is the steering. If you look right about where the cursor is, the big difference in steering actually gets a little bit worse. I'm going to go a little bit to here, and that's a pretty severe angle. After that, I'm full throttle. I'll get to that in a second. But you see that right there, we have a steering difference that is 117 degrees for the red lap over 76 degrees for the black lap. That is 40-degree difference on the steering. Now that is a huge amount. That is what I showed you last time on the video. 40 degrees of steering, huge difference. It should tell a different story on the data. And as you can see, the lateral G's are 1.88 over 1.90. Now to be fair, the red one is a little bit lower by 0.02. And speed, identical. Now, what that means is that the car is a lot less likely to step out because it's going to be stable as you go into here and it works. Now, that is different to what it would be in the real car. We can see the similar thing in turn 6. I will shift a little bit over, and in turn 6, it's the other way around where my black lap has the excessive amount of steering right here. I'm steering 60 degrees, 65 degrees more, and the lateral G's are the same, 173 to 187. Actually a little bit more on the black one, so there is some, which again shows you the subtle differences. Now, what is real is that if I go back to this turn 5, and if I shift to my temperature page, I'll go to driver here, I have my workbook well organized, I go to tires, and I get a temperature, and you see let's focus on the two upper groups, which are the left front and the right front tires. The rears are very similar when it gets to that. And you see the difference, the peak in temperature on the black line, again through turn 5, starts to round up a lot sooner, and it's a lot lower temperature altogether. That number right there is 117 degrees Celsius over 146 for the inner tire of the left front with the excessive amount of steering. Now that is how within iRacing the loss of grip happens. When you get to too high a temperature, now the car will start to go. It's not a matter of angle. That is what is different. By excessive slip angle of the tire, it does not change the behavior of the car, but it generates more heat. And when you do get to the excessive number, then you start losing grip. So you achieve the same feel, but at a later rate. Now, let's imagine that I were driving in the black line, and for some reason my temperature is way up on top. Well, now, because of too much toe, too much caster, too much camber, whatever, now it would feel a lot sooner, like at the limit. The problem is, when that happens though, there is no recovery, where in the real car, all you need to do is recover a few degrees on the steering input, and you are below the slip angle, you recover the grip. Because in this case, it's artificially happening with the temperature, you don't have the same quick recovery. You have so much latency on the temperature buildup on the tire that although you bring the tires back to straight, they don't recover right away. That is why if you ever get into like a super slide, or worse, that's one thing that is very limiting, is that if you get the perfect zero steer, where the car is getting into that mild oversteer. You're pointing the car very early into the corner soon, and that's brilliant. The problem is that while you're doing this, the temperature rises, which is true, it would happen. But if it gets to the point where it's now losing grip, you cannot recover. Where in real life, that is a technique you need to use. You need to use zero steer to be truly fast, to get the car pointed, and now you brake, you stop the slide, and you go. In this environment, you cannot do that. You cannot capitalize on it. The window is very narrow. Another example, you may have experienced that before, and I will do another video where I show you that when you have that big slide or a spin, and then you get back on track, and at this point everything should be back to normal. Okay, if you have dirt on your tires, yes, but let's say you stayed on track and you barely touch the gas and you get massive wheel spin, massive oversteer, and that's because the tire is overheated. That's what happens. That's what you get into there, and it's part of the limitations of what the environment is. Again, it's still very good. It's still awesome. Don't let that stop you from getting there, but it explains some of the subtle differences in characteristic in behavior. I hope that helped. Happy Nico, happy racing.